Welcome back to the channel and thank you for watching. So with all this talk about donate versus pledge in the Depp Heard trial, I thought it would be interesting to talk about the real meaning of the words pledge versus donate and the legal distinctions between them, because there are legal distinctions between them. In fact, pledge can have more than one meaning in law and they are both very different to donate, but let's go through them in a little bit more detail in this video. So the word pledge, to begin with, can have two very distinct meanings by itself. One may simply mean a promise. So it is a pledge, a promise to do something or to give something, just a promise, generally a promise of some kind or another, and doesn't necessarily have any other legal implications whatsoever, other than the person has promised to do it. Now, if it is a pledge that is given to a court, then certainly in England and Wales, that is normally known as an undertaking. So an undertaking might be considered to be a pledge to the court, a promise to the court, an undertaking to the court. Now, in this sort of scenario, if someone has made an undertaking or a pledge to the court, it is a promise to the court either to do something, to not do something, to pay money, to not pay money, or whatever it might be. But in either case, if the person then breaks that promise to the court, that then can amount to, and pretty much is, a contempt of court, because they've gone against what they've promised the court, because ultimately it would be enforced in the same way as an order of the court. So if a person makes this undertaking to a court, it has the same effect as a court ordering that person to do or to not do said thing. So that is the first sort of definition of pledge, in a sense, in a legal sense, that it might be used typically when involving legal practice or a court. The second way is very different, although it probably comes closer to donate, but still very different. So the second typical definition of pledge in law would be to provide some kind of security interest to a lender or a creditor, whereby the creditor has lent this person money, or typically, lent money against a house or a purchase or so on. And the person might make a pledge, i.e. they are pledging something of value, which the creditor will very often take possession of or certainly have a legal interest in order to ensure that they get repaid on the money that they have lent. Now, in this scenario, somebody might pledge an account with money in it. They might pledge a piece of machinery, a building, a vehicle, or something else of value, maybe artwork, which often has a significant amount of value. They are pledging this as some kind of security in exchange for the money that they've been lent. In addition to that, if the person pledging that asset then removes it and takes it without permission of the creditor, the lender, then the creditor can typically sue in conversion, because they have been pledged legally the entitlement or the rights, the equitable right to that asset. And so they may well be able to sue for conversion. Conversion or conversion of goods and property is where someone illegally treats something as if it's their own. So if someone were to, let's say, eat something in a supermarket before they've paid for it, technically that's a special type of theft called conversion. They've treated it as though it were their own, and they've got no right to do that because they have no rights in the property itself. Think of it a little bit like this. It might not be theft in the sense that you intend to pay for it, so that might not meet the definition for theft, which is including dishonest appropriation of the property. So it's not necessarily dishonest in and of itself, because the person might intend to pay for it. However, it would amount to a special type of theft called conversion, because if they've eaten it, they have treated it as though they are the owner. They've treated it as though they have the right to that food or whatever it is they've consumed. And they've deprived, more importantly, they've deprived the rightful owner of their right to do with that food stuff, whatever it was, as they so choose. So coming back to the pledge, if the person who did own and has pledged this asset then takes it back and does something else with it, they've treated it as though they have the right to it, when in fact those rights have been pledged and legally registered to the person, to the lender, in favor of whom the pledge has been made. So that is pledge. So simply making a promise, but to a court would be more severe, or pledging some kind of asset. As against the word donate, because the word donate is a very different beast altogether. Donate, as most people will understand it, is to voluntarily transfer property, usually money, to another person. And so if you donate something, you have voluntarily, without any exchange of value whatsoever, so it's not a contract. It can't meet the normal definitions of a contract, because there must be consideration on both sides for a contract. So, for example, if I say to somebody, I am going to donate money to your cause, but then I change my mind and I don't, they can't necessarily sue me for it, because it would not necessarily be enforceable as a contract, because it doesn't meet the basic terms, which is an offer, acceptance, and consideration. Consideration is just some form of value for each party to the transaction. So, in other words, everybody gets something. But in a donation, not everybody gets something, because the person donating the money or donating the asset or whatever it is that they are giving freely with no exchange of value or consideration whatsoever on behalf of the person that is receiving that donation. So the two are very different. So as some people have recently described it, it cannot be used synonymously with pledge, because they are very different indeed. So I thought that might be an interesting sideline to all we are talking about with the analysis of trials and evidence and so on, and looking at the real meaning of these terms. So there you have it. Pledge has a couple of different meanings typically used, both of which very different from the term donate, and donate is not, I suggest, synonymous with pledge. I hope you found that interesting. Please make sure you hit the like button and subscribe, and as always, thank you for watching.